Yeah.
We're on.
Hey guys, happy Sunday afternoon to you, April 19th. Let's make sure everybody gets on. Let's make sure that it goes live. We should be broadcasting. I think it's just a little bit delayed for just a minute. We'll give everybody a chance. Let's just make sure.
Oh, got a lot of people coming on the street.
Okay, hold that thought. We're going to check our computers.
We're on.
Yep, we're doing good. Yep.
You need to mute.
Okay, now we're live. Now you guys can see me. The problem is though, I have a computer that has a speaker going, so I need to turn it off. Okay, so now we're good. Okay, it's a little hard when you're hearing yourself with like a 1 second delay in the background. It makes it very challenging. Wendy, how are we looking with everybody? Everybody jumped in. I think everybody's here. I can't hear you, Wendy. I think you're muted.
Hey everyone, we're doing great. Everyone's jumping in, so this is great.
Everybody, this is Wendy. She's our co-host today, and so she'll be hanging out. If you guys have any questions, make sure you throw them into the Q&A, and she'll be able to throw them out, and I'll jump into them as we go. It's going to be very interactive, so we're going to co-create this thing today. We're going to co-create an event called Reinvented Life, which was a book that I wrote with a good friend of mine named Christopher Ashby back in 2012. And I thought it'd be really useful for us to talk about this today because there's a whole lot of reinvention going on. Right now, we're in the middle of a major event. It's called a pandemic. And probably nobody here, unless you've been to the Congo, has ever really been through a pandemic. Certainly nobody in the United States that lives here. And so I thought it'd be really fitting because not only is it shuffling and kind of blowing up a lot of lives, but it's also a time for us to rethink and reimagine what everything could be like, because most of us are at home. I'm at home. I'm at home most of the time. Probably most of the population is maybe not so grateful they're at home all the time right now because their kids are driving them crazy. I know some of you guys are a little bit frustrated because your kids are, right next to you 24/7. So we're gonna give you some ideas and some tips. And if you have any questions or you have any ideas or you want me to dig into something, please jump in, type those into the Q&A, and Wendy will throw them out and then I'll answer them. Back in 2008, and by the way, one other thing, if you guys haven't downloaded this is the workbook for the book. It's basically all the questions in the book. So we're gonna go through some of those questions. Go ahead and download that. If you didn't get a link or you can't find the link, you can go to damienlupo.com/downloads and just download it. And that'll give you a reference guide. And then if you want a copy of the book, you can also get one there, or you can get it on Amazon, whatever's easier for you. So back to the book. Back in 2008, a lot of you remember the big meltdown. And in my life, that meltdown was after a major run-up. Like a lot of folks, I had a really good 2000s. In 2008, I went from a $20 million portfolio and a pretty successful life that we'll get into when we talk about success versus fulfillment. I went from there to a place where I lost everything plus 5 million, which means I had a negative $5 million net worth. And because my net worth and self-worth were so intertangled, they were basically the same thing. I didn't really know who I was. So I did the natural thing. I just ignored it and pretended everything was good, kept wearing the same clothes. And I really kept doing the same activities. And that's part of the problem. And that's one of the things we're going to go through when we talk about reinvention is something has happened and then we just ignore that reality. And that's part of the grief cycle as well. I didn't realize I was going through it, but that's the first thing that happened. So eventually when I went through this, I got to a place where I said, okay, well, what actually just happened? And I realized, there's a lot of problems. In the beginning though, I was blaming somebody else. And that's part of the cycle too, where we tend to blame. The next phase really is you go through ignoring and then anger and then blaming and depression. And then eventually you move through into a place called responsibility. That's what Reinvented Life is all about. When I finally took responsibility, and it wasn't just a moment where I said, I'm responsible. It took me almost 2 years of working with a guy named Frank, where we asked the question, what is true? And when I got down to it, I realized the only way for me to actually have any control and power was to acknowledge that everything was my fault, my responsibility, and no finger pointing, just me. And then I said, okay, from this point, I can start reinventing my life. And in that process, I started to realize that there was a shift that had gone on that probably would be very useful for other people. And that's how Reinvented Life came to be. It was that process. And I'm going to go through it with you guys for about the next 90 minutes or so. We're going to go through all the different pieces of it. And I'm going to give you some stories, some examples, some action steps. And then what I'd like you to do is take that workbook and go deeper into this, because this isn't like watching HBO where you just go, that was cool, and then you move on to the next thing. This is really meant to be an interactive process where you can reinvent whatever it is in your life that needs to be reinvented. It might be the whole thing. So let's talk about what it starts off with. And the first chapter after Chris and I told our stories was the trigger event. Right now, the trigger event looks like a big old pandemic. It's disrupting everything. And for me, back in 2009, the trigger event for the reinvention, it was after I lost all this money. I had a knock at the door. And if you've read the book, you'll remember I had this knock and I went to the door, and I didn't really know why anybody would be knocking because I was hiding from the world. And it was 4 armed somebodies, and I didn't know who, but they had badges and guns, and I was like, this is really bad. Like, there's not a good scenario where 4 people with guns are knocking on my door. So I just hid. And it was really a reflection of my life, hiding from responsibility, hiding from the truth. And so after a while, I went around the house and came to the front door, and I noticed that there was an envelope on the door, and I thought, that's bad. That usually means you've been served. So I opened it, and it said, "Dear Miss Dorman." And what I realized was that the message was for somebody else, and yet it was totally for me. The message brought me to my knees. I literally dropped to my knees, and I lost it. I started crying. I was such a mess, an emotional mess. I was in so much fear, and it started the unraveling of the ignoring. And right now there's an opportunity for you guys to take this pandemic and really say, okay, if we look at it, the question is, what are we going to do with it? So we want to give it meaning. And I'm not talking about giving it meaning like whatever Fox or CNN or your neighbor says. I'm talking about giving it meaning. Like, this could be the greatest opportunity of your life. And we're going to go through why it could be the greatest opportunity of your life. And I think it's important for us to start asking better questions. I mean, everything really comes down to the questions. One of the problems, though, is who we're talking with about this. Trigger events, it's like going to Facebook. When you go into the echo chamber of Facebook, you type something because you're curious, and then you get all these news articles or different people's posts that reflect it. So you basically just reinforce your belief system. The problem is, if you've just taken on the meaning of this is an evil thing, or this is a scary thing, or this is a good thing, and you're not thinking, then that meaning that you took on from somebody else is going to just keep recycling in your brain, and it's going to keep pounding it in, and it's going to become permanent. So I'm going to challenge you to take this trigger event, because probably this is impacting you in some way. Give it a different meaning. Ask yourself, what could the meaning be? I mean, for me, this event is a great opportunity. And I'm rethinking about all sorts of things. My health, is my immune system super strong? And how can I make it stronger? I'm thinking about, what am I doing with my day-to-day? I was talking with Wendy and Dave not too long ago. And one of the things that came up was the last year was a blur. I was like, what just happened? A year went by, and that can happen. It happens to a lot of us because we're so busy moving through our lives. And this has caused a pause. Like, the whole planet's on pause right now. So if you're paused, don't feel bad. It's actually a very good thing if you take it as a good thing. I started thinking, okay, this could be a really good thing to bring me to a point of stillness, which is another part we're going to go into in the book. And I started asking better questions, and it evolved. I'm actually filming this today from my new home. I moved a week ago. I moved to the mountains because I realized that the life that I was living was not the life that was meant for me. There was something else. There was a better place for me to be, and it was a better place to be to create for my mission. And so this pause has created an opportunity for us to ask, what could this be for? And we're going to dig into that with some of the activities and behaviors that we've had that maybe were automatic, and now we're going to bring them into a level of consciousness. So let's shift into the conscious. The thing that we really want to talk about with consciousness is we want to ask a question. It's in the workbook, but it's really the question of happiness. And my question to you is, what makes you happy? When we talk about reinventing our lives, a lot of times you either hear people say it or you hear your own mind spiral into it where you're not happy. You're just miserable. And people that are miserable, maybe they don't have three things, but there's probably three things that we can think about. I used to think that food and alcohol and more money, that made me happy. But the problem is it was something that we'll get to in a minute. It was called success, and then it went away. So I started thinking differently, and I said, okay, well, what really makes me happy? What, those 6 human needs that we talk about in the book, what really gets to those? And for me, what I found was what makes me happy is my health. And this can be whatever it is for you. The second thing I realized I know some of these things are going to seem kind of duh, but hey, you know what? Sometimes duh is good because it's right in front of us, but we can't see it. And I realized my relationships makes me really happy. Real relationships. I'm not talking about your 5,000 Facebook friends. I'm talking because I don't even know if those make you happy. I think those make your ego happy, but they don't really make us happy at a joy, just belly laughing, just feel good way. But the relationships, real relationships do. And the other thing, if I'm thinking about the 3, is my environment. And that's where I'm at here. I mean, this environment, and it's why I talk about in the peak life, one of the E's is your environment, because it's so important. Where I was at before, it was getting crazy. I had this thing called a Ring, like you guys have seen this, the doorbell deal where you have cameras and stuff. So I had a doorbell, and it gives me alerts, and it says, some UPS is at your door, and I'm like, great, Amazon's here for the 14th time today. Sweet. All right. And I, wave at them, and we don't get within 6 feet, and that's all good. But then I get an alert, gunshots in the neighborhood. And then I get another alert. Look at this guy. He just took the license plates off my car. I didn't live in the hood, but it felt like I lived in the hood. And I started thinking, how is this going to impact me if I don't have an environment that's conducive to my mission and to my happiness and to my safety, if I'm feeling like I might get killed when I go to bed? So I started saying, okay, what can I do different? So a week later, shifted my environment. So the mountains for me makes me super happy, and I'm here. So what are those 3 things that make you super happy? Being conscious to those, it helps us to go deeper into building momentum around keeping them and growing them and expanding them. So we want to ask that, what makes us happy? Now, if what makes you happy is a bunch of cocaine, get help, because I'm not saying go do another line and that will be the solve. That's how you reinvent. That's how you die, probably. So be thoughtful about this and maybe get a little reflection with somebody that can give you the truth. I think one of the most valuable things, we're going to get into this later, is with accountability and people that are willing to tell you the truth, because oftentimes we can't see it because we're just too damn close. So pick 3, start with 3, not 100, just 3. And if you can't come up with 3, that says something too. And I think it's a good time to ask yourself, what could those 3 be? And then maybe start practicing them. Okay, let's go to the higher order consequences. And Wendy, if anybody has any questions, just jump right in and let me know and kind of stop me, and we'll get into them. You guys, there's a Q&A. You can just raise your hand and type your question in there, and I'll make sure to answer it. Okay, so for higher order consequences, there's 3 levels of consequences. There's the first one, which is like it's your emotional, we'll just call it the E. And this is where it feels good. This is like in the book, we talk about eating ice cream feels really good, or having a glass of wine feels really good. So that's the immediate. We do it. A lot of us have a click problem with Amazon. Yeah, click, click, click. And it's like, ooh, it feels good. I had to get used to the click to the waiting list, or the parking lot, where you don't just buy everything that looks fun because the algorithms will eat your wallet. So the emotional experience is the first order consequence. That's why a lot of people have weight problems, because it feels good. The dopamine hit, it's a feeling. The thing that happens though is that there's a secondary consequence. And this is more of a longer term. It's the physical reality. And so this is longer term and physical. So this is emotional and it's immediate. The second one is longer term. So if you have an experience, or you have a behavior where you do something and it feels good, but then it doesn't really serve you long term, like let's say you drink a bottle of wine every night, your liver is going to die. which means you're going to die. You're going to become fat and sick. If you are addicted to doing deals, but it's never enough like it was for me, then you keep doing deals, you keep making money, and that feels really good. Long term, you may miss the experience of having relationships with anybody. And you go, oh, well, that was, that's kind of a bummer. Like there's nobody here because I was addicted. A lot of addictions have this is where they live. They live in the emotional experience that screws it up the long term. And ultimately what that tells us is the spiritual piece. There's a problem at the highest level consequence. Your spiritual being, it gets messed up. Like if you're doing things, there's probably either a focus on a lack of abundance. There's something about scarcity. There's a lack of integrity. There's, I'll give you an example. I was going to go into it later, but I'll probably bring it up later too. I had a guy that I was friends with years ago, about 10 years ago, and we did a trip overseas, and the first thing this guy wanted to do was to go find a strip club so he could pick up a hooker. And I thought, this is really weird because we do yoga together and we hang out with your wife and kids. And the first thing you want to do somewhere is feel good with the hooker. And I went, okay, so long-term, lots of consequences. Messes you up physically, could have a little bit of extra diseases, all sorts of things could happen there. Maybe you get divorced because your wife says, are you crazy? I'm out of here, which hopefully she did. And then third, the highest consequence there is the integrity is broken. So I broke up that friendship. I said, I eviscerated. It was a very important thing to do because when we get into the Bucky 5, when we're around people, they'll ooze the lack of integrity into our pores. And it's kind of like somebody that has coronavirus that sneezes on your face. Integrity or lack of that oozes into you is going to shift you. And so I said, okay, his behaviors that feel good is leading to a problem of who this guy is. And I don't want to become that. So I'm getting out of here. I'm literally detaching. So it's first, second, short-term emotion, feeling, then physical, longer term. And then there's more of a spiritual consequence of breaking your values and your virtues, or maybe just destroying them altogether. All right, let's go into success versus fulfillment. Until about 60 days ago, there were a lot of us that were focused on success. We were focused on bling and shiny things and all sorts of more. Our system is set up for success. We're reinforced when we have success, when we make more money, when we buy a bigger house, when we have a faster car, when we have a prettier spouse. So whether it's a house or a spouse, you can be Dr. Seuss if you want to, but the problem is success is a moment. And then it's gone. So I remember back when I was doing houses, I remember getting a deal done. I was so excited. I was like, yes, success. I made $50,000 or $500 or whatever the number was. I felt really good. And then it was gone. And then I went, oh, it's like anybody that's ever created $1 million or you became a millionaire. You're like some people will have the story where their accountant called them and said, you're a millionaire. And they go, oh, and now what? Like it was this moment in time when we buy as consumers, as like after 9/11, what happened? What did President Bush say? Go out and do it. Be a good patriot. Go out and buy, because we feel good, and it's about consuming. It's about those success moments. Buy a new purse or a bag or a new car. You feel good for a minute, but then what happens? It's gone. You have to go to the next thing. It's like being a crackhead. I mean, deals were my success addiction back years ago. I needed more of those deals, and sitting still. When I made a ton in 2004 and 2005, I was very fortunate that my timing was very good with buying stuff 5 years earlier. And so when the market moved up, I sold a bunch of stuff and I had several $1 million. And it was fascinating because I wasn't willing to sit still, which is another place we're going to go. I needed more success. I was addicted to the success. So I went out and said, okay, I'm going to do more success stuff instead of being fulfilled with anything that actually deeply mattered, that would be more forever. I mean, doing something with a child, doing something for other people, the fulfillment that we get from those things, taking a trip with your friends, there is something so radically profound about the fulfillment versus a success moment. And I ended up screwing up my life in large part. I guess it gave me the material to write this book. But what I didn't realize was that success wasn't going to make me happy. I learned that after going through this. Success was just going to give me a shot of dopamine, and then I'd have to keep doing it again. So having enough money to be free, we'll get into that in Runway. I literally I didn't understand it until I spent a couple of years figuring that out. So all those success things, the great thing about being stuck at home, being quarantined, being bunkered, is that we have the opportunity to focus on fulfillment, because maybe we can't do all the success stuff. We can't create that stuff like we have in the past. It's an unbelievable opportunity for us to shift into things that are fulfilling, things that we can be proud of, things that we can smile about for decades, and we can share, that are part of our legacy, something that's based on a mission. It's a hugely different thing. It's a different focus on things that are fulfilling versus success. And we get into stillness. So when I was, oh, by the way, you know what success starts with? Suck. Because it feels good, but then it kind of sucks because you got to go do it again. And it's like, it never ends. So I was just thinking about that when I was writing this the last few days, working on this for you guys. It feels like it's good. Maybe it kind of sucks. Fulfillment is fulfilling. All right, so stillness. So one of the reasons that I moved to the mountains was because the stillness is so inherent in being in nature. And being in a city with people shooting guns and stealing things, and just the vibration is very different. I wasn't willing to be in stillness there. I wasn't willing to be in it back in 2005. So I needed the juice. I was addicted to the excitement back then. This time I said, what do I really want? I want the stillness. So I'm going to move away from being in the city. I'm going to go to a place where I can be with my mission and focus on relationships and my wellness and my health. It's a huge shift because of a willingness to be still. Now, I know a lot of you guys are sitting here thinking, not really sure how to be still. I've got 4 kids and 3 dogs, and everybody's yelling and barking, and I'm losing my mind. So how do I be still? We're going to get into that. Let me grab something so we can get into that. Last year, the blur that I talked about, was part of that was that I took about 30 trips, 30 events, and they were a lot of fun. There was a lot of success. There was a lot of stimulation. And I realized that I was just on a fast track road to my death, probably with a lot of money, a lot of experiences. It was just going to be a big blur. I was going so fast. The shift for stillness, it wasn't just moving. It was sitting here thinking about this event that's happened. There's no events this year. Like they're just done. They're virtual, like we're doing now. There's not 30 trips. There's not 3 trips. I don't know if there will be any trips. And I started thinking about whether I was actually disappointed or whether I was excited about that. And I started thinking, you know what? This is a great thing, because this will allow me to sit still, to focus on doing more for more people. Because it takes a lot out of us. Any of you that travel a lot and you're flying to conferences and events and you're sponsoring and you're speaking and all that kind of stuff, it's exhausting. And I thought there's going to be a better way. And this is the gift. This is the gift that has landed on my lap. So what am I going to do with it? I'm going to focus on stillness. And my question to you is, where is your stillness? You know, we can find stillness in almost anything. Some of the books, there is a book called by Viktor Frankl, and he talks about his experience in the concentration camps. And I'm sure there was a lot of time where he sat and just thought, and there's stuff going on around him. It's a very extreme example. We're all going through things that are more extreme than we've probably ever experienced in this, you know, in the way they are. I would ask you the question, what could you do? Where could you find your stillness? Some of you know how to do this because you've been doing it for years. There's things like praying, meditating, and you guys are going to love this one. Meditating, walking. walking. Now, this may be masked, I understand. And, you know, I learned how to ride a bicycle recently wearing a mask, and it was a little harder, but walking. There's a stillness in walking, especially if you can find some type of nature. Sitting still and learning how to, like Hal Elrod talks about this in The Morning Miracle, how to be still. Any of you that have a practice with your church or synagogue or anything, you understand about stillness with praying. There is power in this, and it can be for 15 seconds. It doesn't have to be for an hour. Now, if you can do it for an hour, that's something else. That's a different level. I am not that good. My squirrel brain goes crazy. So I practice this, and I do a walking meditation sometimes. And one of the things you can do that'll really help you is leave the phone at home. When you walk and you're detached from all of the interruption, no AirPods. I did that today, walked up into the mountains, and I was just walking. No podcast. I love podcasts. No podcast, no music, birds. And it was a serene experience to be with something so much greater than me. Like right now I'm looking at red rocks, and it's very empowering, and it's very still because it's very big and it's very hard. So type A's like me, it works out really well to be around that. And I'm going to encourage you to find that, find that stillness, find it. It's somewhere. I mean, the point I'm making is that instead of being upset about a pandemic, we can find gratitude. Gratitude. There's gratitude for the pandemic. It's something that we can use to find that stillness. That for most of us, I think in the Western world, we don't even know what stillness is. We think we get stillness when we go to bed, but what happens? We're thinking about tomorrow, what happened. There's anxiety about the future. There's depression about the past. It's kind of crazy. And yet there's a possibility that we can actually learn how to be still. And in the reinvention process, it's a key, because you can't stay wound up about the past. You have to let go of that, find stillness, and it creates space. We're opening space for you guys to reinvent, to reimagine, to recreate. That's what it has. You have to have stillness. There's no way to do it. I have a good friend that has had a number of different jobs, and it's been very, very difficult for this person to leave one of the jobs or careers and not immediately go into the next thing, because and stillness is not necessarily a problem as long as it's not for too long. And the challenge and the gift is when you can find the stillness and be completely grateful and happy in the stillness. It changes everything. So maybe if you're good at stillness for 15 seconds, try it for 2 minutes. See what happens. You might open a channel into something that you've never experienced before. So sitting, there's a couple of things with sitting. We can either be frustrated and react to everything, which I think is a lot of what happens. We're sitting there at home, we're super frustrated, and we're reacting to kids, the dogs, the world, the news cycle, or we have gratitude and intention. There's a huge opportunity to start looking at this space and be intentional about the stillness, or whatever it is, the chaos, and create stillness out of it. Maybe as a family, maybe as a partner with whoever you're with, or maybe by yourself, if that's where you're at. But it's either you're reacting or you have intention and you're being proactive. It's really a choice. A lot of this comes down to just what you're choosing. It's not about a lottery ticket or something. It's simply doing the work. And if you think about it, being in gratitude lifts your spirit. Being intentional gives you power and control. Right now, a lot of us aren't feeling like we have a whole lot of control. No real power to do anything. We're sitting there wondering what's even true, because the media is all over the place and we don't really know what to believe. So what you can believe is in yourself, in your ability to control your outcome, your reaction, your experience. Start with the intention. All right. Now we're going to go into some external stuff that I like a lot. This is the runway. This is the numbers. And anybody that's ever worked with me knows that I am hardcore I'm like a dentist doing a root canal if I ever get involved with working with you on your numbers, because the numbers don't lie. Numbers tell a story. They tell us the truth. The reason that many of us don't want to actually look at our numbers is because they tell us the truth about our choices, our behaviors, what matters to us. I mean, I can tell you what you care about if I look at your credit card, your bank statement, and your calendar. It's the numbers. How many hours a day are you doing X? How many dollars are you spending on Y? I mean, it's very clear. So one of the things about the runway during reinvention is you have to get really clear on how much fuel you have. And when I talk about fuel, I'm talking about money, because money is energy, and that energy allows you to buy food, shelter, live. Now, most of you are not watching this from a tent in the middle of the desert or the mountains with no interaction with money. So runway becomes an incredibly important thing, especially if your fuel, your income stops or slows down. Question is, if you're going to reinvent and you're completely going to change, like back in 2008, I had a cash and cash flow problem. My cash flow was all going out, and I had a certain amount of cash, and it was very, very small, and it was going away. The problem is I still had cash flow. So I had to figure out how much runway I had until I blew up my life. Now, the average American that I've heard has about $400, or maybe they can't even deal with a $400 emergency. Makes me sad and nervous that people are in that situation. I'm assuming that you have more than 400. I'm assuming that there's something there, and whatever number that is fine. In 2005, 6, when I had this big boom, and a lot of us have had a boom the last 10 years, I got to a point where I had about 3 million in cash, and I was burning about 25,000 a month. And so that's $300,000 a year. And that meant that I had 10 years of runway. Like I could just sit still and do nothing, and I had 10 years of run. So 300,000 times 10 years is 3 million. So if I did nothing, I just burned my cash, I had 10 years of runway. Now there have been points where I had a lot less than that. And let's say I had 50,000 and I got my expenses under control. And this may be you, where your monthly expenses are 5K. That means you've got 10 months of run. So when we're deciding whether we're going to do something different, if we're going to shift our life, this may not have been your choice that all of a sudden a pandemic happened. You lost your job, the income from your business slowed down. That happened. The reality is there's a certain amount of runway that you have. Most of us don't have permanent runway, and this is the goal. We have a certain amount of time until we have to make bigger decisions, maybe some painful decisions. One of my idiot moves was back when things had gone off a cliff. I was talking to my accountability partner, and we were looking at our financials, and he said, okay, so what's your burn? And I said, well, it was 75,000 a month. And I know for some of you, you're going, I don't make 75,000 a year. And I was like, well, that's what happens when you have a Ferrari, and then you have other Ferraris and castles and all this kind of stuff. So I did. I had 75,000, and it was insane. But that was reality. What I did is I took it from 75,000 and I reduced it to 25,000 a month. And I said, I did good. And my friend looked at me and he said, you're an idiot. And I said, why? I just cut it by 65%. He said, you don't have 25,000 a month to spend. And what I had to realize was, okay, all these things that I thought were absolute necessities, they're not necessities. They were part of a legacy past. And I wasn't being honest or real, because at some point, if the runway runs out, checks bounce, credit cards don't go through, like you're just done. So the question I have for you right now is, are you ready to get in front of it? Are you ready to make the decisions now so that you're actually in control, versus having your lights turned off, or realizing you can't make payroll for anybody, and then all of a sudden you break your brand, you kill your business? It's a question of, when are you going to make the hard choices? And ultimately what we're going to do is, for reinventing, we're going to say, okay, if I'm reinventing, I have 6 months or 12 months, I've got to get things done. And then you figure out your plan so that you can do that. I think right now we're in for a very long period of whatever this is. So we want to get really real. Like if we're in the same situation in December, I know a lot of you are thinking that it can't happen. It could happen. Nobody thought this would happen in January, there wasn't anybody that was thinking, yeah, the entire planet is going to be locked up at home, sitting still, stuck, income collapsed, markets collapsing. That was not a part of our reality. What if the reality is we're still stay at home? What happens if we go back to work and then it blows up again and then all the governors do the same thing in the United States and around the world? What if that happened? How much runway do you have? If you have 3 months of runway and we might be at home, question is, what are you going to do? So my suggestion is look at the R's. These are real good. Things like real estate, royalties, and residuals. So I'm looking at, when I think about creating runway, if your burn rate is $5,000 a month and you have no money in the bank, but you have $5,000 that comes to you from something, you're permanently free. You don't actually have to have cash. You just have to have cash flow. So things like real estate, obviously, if you have rental property or if you're part of something where you've invested in somebody's deal and it's kicking out money, that creates runway, potentially forever. Royalties, if you write a book. Now, if you write a book, somebody actually has to buy it, which means having a great book doesn't mean you're going to have royalties. You've got to share it. You've got to like do something with it. But there's a book, I would say, in just about everybody, because we all have a story. Brendan Burchard talks about this a lot, that we all have something valuable to give people. And a book is a great way to do that. A podcast, a blog. I mean, how many YouTube? I mean, I'm amazed at that there are children that unwrap gift presents and they're making millions of dollars a year unwrapping presents and talking about the presents. I mean, the things that you can do to create royalties and revenue are unbelievable. And then there are some of those things just keep going forever. And then residuals from businesses. So I have a friend of mine that, I actually have a number of friends that have done this, where they've had businesses, they sold them to partners, and they continue to get a residual income stream. They have permanent runway because of that. What's even better is to have all of them and more. One of the great myths is that a great job is the key to financial freedom. The problem is it's one source of income, and it doesn't really create any security because it can go away. I mean, there are a lot of people, maybe this happened to you, where you do great at your job. The reality of the business that you're in is that it just stopped. So that one source of income stopped. Even with the government throwing money into these different programs, doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to keep getting paid. And that's the problem with having one source of income. So my suggestion is find lots of sources. Don't do them all at once, though. Robert Allen, bless his heart, that's what they say in the South, and I have lived in the South, so bless his heart. He talks about this in Multiple Streams of Income. It's a great book, gives you ideas. It's kind of like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. Great idea. Takes more than 4 hours to be competitive and to get things done in general. However, let's go back to Robert Allen. He said multiple streams of income. Good idea, not good to start all at once because you become crappy at all of them. You know, like people have come up to me over the years and said, I have lots of things I do. And I say, great, what are you doing? Well, I've got some real estate and I have a couple businesses and I'm an Amway distributor and a Mary Kay distributor. And I'm like, I don't understand how you're doing both of those, but okay. And all these different things. And I say, well, okay, tell me about the numbers. Panic. Well, you know, it's about, you know, it's like a few thousand a month. And I was like, okay, a few thousand a month. There shouldn't be a problem creating a few thousand times 10 on any one of those things if you actually focused on it for 5 years. This is no joke. There isn't anything you can't create tens of thousands of dollars a month in income from if you focus on it, really focus on it and figure out how to be world class. My friend Steve Siebold talks about this in his books, being world class. If you haven't read Steve's books, buy them and read them, because it's all about being world class. It's not about being of the poor class or the middle class, because the poor and the middle tend to get by. They do enough to get by. The world class thinks totally different. They're thinking big picture. They're thinking mission. They're thinking about leverage, all sorts of things that make them world class. They're impacting generally more people, and that's one of the keys. But having $5 from this thing and $14 from this thing, that's not going to create the runway. The runway is going to be You doing something, get it going, get the momentum, and then add more, and then add more. Ultimately, permanent runway means you can reinvent anytime you want. The first thing you got to do though is figure out how much time you have until your grenade that you're holding onto, which is called your fuel, your money, blows up like it's gone. So get very, very clear about that. This is something that you're probably going to want to talk with somebody else about. Somebody that maybe isn't your friend, somebody that will ask you hard questions, will look at your numbers, like my friend who, it was unusual because he was a friend, but it didn't feel very friendly. It was hard. It was like the medicine of, I am burning more money. I don't even have the money to burn. All I was doing was burning the last bits of my credit cards. And that's what a lot of people will do. Unfortunately, we don't want to acknowledge the truth. And so we'll say, oh, but I have $30,000 on my credit card, so we just start charging. It's a trap. It's like these government programs, they are loans, and some of them are going to be forgiven. But if people just take the money and then decide, oh, I'm not actually going to hire people back, guess what? You owe all this money. So credit isn't necessarily runway. It's temporary runway, but it's like a slippery slope into the abyss. So just be really careful about that. Okay. Metrics. More number stuff, more measuring. I find it fascinating that our system doesn't talk about metrics. And when we think about metrics, what we learned to measure in high school, and that's really where we learned about personal finance, unless you've been a big fan of Robert Kiyosaki or have done your own journey. I remember learning how to balance a checkbook and to speculate on stocks. And that was my entire like personal development in personal finance. That was crazy. In reality, what we have to say, first off, we have to say, okay, what are we measuring? If you don't know how much is going out, how much is coming in, how much the spread is, how do you know if you're doing any better, if you're being any smarter, if you're actually making progress? I had this old partner years ago, and she used to say, I'm making progress. And I go, how do you know? And it wasn't until we actually looked at her numbers and got really hard with them, really hardcore, dug into them, that she started to realize what was actually progressing and what was just delusion. We got to ask, what are we measuring? First question I always ask people is, who is your bookkeeper? And I've been guilty of this, like a lot of you guys. I can't afford a bookkeeper because I only have this. It's only my personal life. I don't even have a business. I don't have any real estate. And so then I say, okay, well, if you don't have a bookkeeper because it's not important enough, can you show me your financials from last week and last month? Do you keep track of them? Do you know how much money you had coming in? Do you know, categorized how much you went out, how much went out to your expenses? Dear, like in the light. It's because we don't want to look at that. We'd rather just ignore it because things are still kind of working. There is not a rich person. There is not a world-class person that doesn't have a bookkeeper for their business and their personal life. It just doesn't exist. And so now some people try to mash themselves into doing it. But if you're a bookkeeper, if you're doing your bookkeeping, you are literally never going to be free because you'll just spend your time doing something that somebody else is going to be much better at. And your gift and your talent and your ability to generate wealth is it's far beyond that. You got to figure out who your bookkeeper is. And then you got to start measuring things. I have daily, weekly, monthly numbers. I measure all sorts of stuff. And my bookkeeper is giving me data. And then I've got data from other places. And so it's going to be different for everybody, but there are going to be some basic ones. Your profit and loss. How much came in? How much went out? That's your expenses going out, by the way, right? Your balance sheet. Are your assets increasing? Are they decreasing? What's actually happening? Are you taking on more debt? Assets going down? I used to think that, oh, I can just sell stuff. And I think I got this from my dad because he would always say, we don't have enough money. How am I supposed to pay for anything? Because our house payment's this and our expenses are this, and I only make this. So if your expenses are here and your income is here, he would say, we don't even have, that's without food. And I'd go, oh my gosh. So I felt guilty for years just about doing anything. So I started buying my own food when I was like 11. And that does some brain damage to you. So just, when you think about that, what you tell yourself, what you tell to your kids, the stuff that we say. So we want to make sure that our income is actually higher than our expenses. I mean, in reality, I think a lot of people think that it is, and yet they just ignore the fact that their credit card keeps getting higher every month. and every year. And they'll just keep giving you credit. So we want to look at our balance sheet, our cash flow statement. If you have a business, one of the biggest mistakes I see is that people have two financial statements, profit and loss and a balance sheet. And they're like oblivious to the cash flow. They go, oh, I made money. Oh, my balance sheet's good. But where the heck is the cash? Like all those people that owe you money haven't paid. So what's your cash? Going away. And you're going bankrupt. You can easily go bankrupt and be profitable. It's kind of a scary thought, but it's because you're not controlling your cash. And the cash is king. Cash is the actual fuel. The idea of cash is one thing, but you can't eat with it. The other things that I measure literally daily are my sales, my net profit, my cash flow. I measure my leads. I measure how many thank you cards I send out, where I'm connecting. Because to me, it's about relationships. It's about being authentic. It's about spending time on people. It's not about pushing people through a system and automating the crap out of everything. I think that's a big mistake. If you want to have no competition, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, focus on the relationships. People don't care how good you are, how good your product is, unless they know that you care about them. And that is a general rule that is almost always right. You know, in the extreme case, I think if you have a life-saving drug, you don't care if that company cares that much about you. You just care if the drug works. So I get it, there are exceptions, but in reality, when you're going out to do business, you're not building $1 billion drug. What you're doing is building a relationship where somebody is choosing to do business with someone they know, like, and trust. And you start with a relationship. You start with measure how much you're putting into relationships. Thank you cards, sending people messages, actually calling people. Oh my gosh, I know if you're a millennial right now, you're like, I don't want to call somebody. I can text them. Or I'll instant message them. How about Zoom or Skype them? You do something that's actually real, that you can't just lever and it's authentic. I mean, there's something about facial expressions. So if you're in the middle of reinventing your life, just think about measuring things like relationship drivers, and don't just leave this stuff to chance, because it won't just happen on its own. You know, how many books I send out, how many calls I am making, all this stuff gets measured. And you'll notice that there's something that you can control. You can control thank you cards, you can control books, you can control calls. I can do those things. There are certain things you can control. Those are your drivers, your critical drivers. That's why they're measured. And then there's the KPIs, the outcomes. Can't control those, but they are driven by the critical drivers. You focus on your critical drivers, the KPIs can become predictable. If you focus on your sales and you go, I got to sell somebody, you know what that looks like? It looks like the old, sick, nasty car salesperson. It's like that person that just wants you to convert to their religion. They're banging on your door and they won't leave. You're like, stop selling me. Get out of my face. Leave my neighborhood. Nobody likes that. What people want to do, though, is they want to buy from people. They want to do business with people that actually care. And if you show up and you're focused on them, business happens automatically. And I think you really have to understand how it works. You have to have faith and trust. I think a lot of people say they have faith, but they don't actually trust. Now, if you think about that, remember Indiana Jones, Last Crusade, where Indy is walking and he gets to this open cliff thing, and there was faith where people said, okay, you have to have faith that you'll be able to get across, but unless you trusted that somehow it was going to work and actually took a step. So the action was where the trust was. Faith is easy until you have to trust and take a step. And if you trust and you do your critical drivers, it'll be unbelievable what happens in your life. This has so much to do with reality instead of a delusion, which is why most people don't measure anything, because they'd rather live in their like happy-go-lucky delusion of non-truth. Let's see if there's anything else for metrics. Oh, 2K. I already talked to you guys about the $75,000 reality, where I said, I can't possibly shift from 75 to less than 25, but I did because I ran out of money. One of the things that happened when I started measuring, and for years, I've measured how much money I was spending on everything. One year I did it, and I watched every day, and at the end of a year, I watched that I had spent $2,000 on coffee. I mean, $2,000 is a pretty nice trip somewhere in the world. It's just a lot of money for coffee. And I thought, okay, did I have an amazing experience? Because I used to like going to a coffee shop and buying something for $5 or $6, tipping a couple of dollars. Like, I just loved the experience, being there, hanging out, the vibe. Like, it was good for me. So to me, that was worth it. What I was doing, and what I think most of the population does, is we have these habits that we're not really paying attention to. It's a $2,000 habit, and it's like takeaway. Get a cup of coffee. Well, shoot, if you're going to do that, why not just do it at home? For 50 cents, and then you've got $1,800 left over at the end of the year. Measuring thing and understanding your metrics will give you power to make different decisions and ultimately allow you to have more runway, because you'll have more money that you can start putting into things that generate permanent runway. This is not going to just happen out of the blue. Like it takes you saying, I'm going to measure something. And if you don't know what to measure, get help from somebody. Get a coach that understands metrics and finance. Get somebody that actually understands the world of money. Not just somebody that rah-rahs you, but you need, it may be a second coach or a mentor or somebody. Get a bookkeeper. You want people that speak this language. I mean, accounting is the language of business. And if you don't understand accounting and you don't understand your numbers, how do you expect to ever do well in business? Because you have a good thing? Like that good thing is going to go right into the bankruptcy land if you're not actually paying attention to the numbers. And this can be learned. And it's part of your team. Okay, let's go into the AC cycle. Now, this has a different meaning if you're in Arizona or Texas, but this is the action correction cycle. The point of this cycle is the accountability. So who holds you accountable? Account. I did not win the spelling bee. Yeah. Who's holding you accountable? I just don't believe that this is ever going to work with just a spouse, just a parent, just a friend. This happens with something like a mentor, the M&Ms I call them, the mentors and masterminds. Where people will, I have a mastermind, I'm with those guys twice a week. And one of the things that we do is hold each other accountable. And sometimes we don't want to be accountable. We just want to cruise. That's cool, but that's not cool to do for a year or 2 or 10. I mean, it's pretty bad. But the biggest question, if you're going to be accountable, is how naked are you going to be? I'm talking about financially. I'm talking about authentically the choices you're making. How real are you going to be? The AC cycle only works with accountability if you're willing to strip it down and say, this is me. This is my warts. There's my bowl. And there's a little cellulite. I know this is like uncomfortable probably. It's got to be naked. It can't be like, well, cool. Just look here up and diagnose me and tell me. Like I went to my dermatologist a couple months ago. I mean, can you imagine having your dermatologist do a check for cancer spots and you say, only look up here, just this. Don't look down here. Don't look at my, that doesn't work. You've got to be willing to be, if you're going to be accountable, if you're going to take action and then you're going to correct, how do you know what to correct? I mean, nobody's that good. I remember having a mentor. Some of you probably heard of him. His name is Dan Pena. He was on the London Reel recently with Brian Rose. And I paid Dan $400,000 over 2 years for accountability, for being my mentor, for spending time with him. And I made millions and millions of dollars. It was a good exchange. The problem was that at some point I thought, I don't need a mentor because I'm really smart. I know this stuff. I mean, Chris has talked about this. Chris is the smartest guy that I've met. I mean, academically, the co-author of Reinvented Life. I mean, the guy's got 2 PhDs, an MBA, a Juris Doctorate. He's a CPA. Like, he almost went and did an MD. And I'm like, what are you thinking? More was better, I guess. But, we've talked about that in the past, that even when you're smart, you have blind spots. And the mentors and the masterminds, if you're willing to be naked, will help you see those. They'll just point blank point them out. I was on a call with my mastermind not too long ago. I forget what we were talking about, but part of me just can't help it. Like, it's who I am. I have to acknowledge the truth about myself or other people. I know when I'm being a dick. I know when I'm struggling and I'm not being nice. I get that. I know when I'm not making the right decision. But damn it, sometimes I just ignore it anyway. And it's really valuable to say, okay, here's what's going on, and have people go, okay, what else is there? Here's what I'm maybe seeing here. And I did that with somebody, and it was like silence. And then one of the other guys said, I really appreciate you doing that. And it brought up a level of nakedness and truth that needed to, it was Jack Welch's, before he passed away. It was his thing that he said was missing in business. When I saw him about 10 years ago, he said that the number one missing thing in business is candor. We're not telling what needs to be said. We're not saying it. And if you want to correct, if you don't want to just, if you want your life to look like this, and you're like, oh, good, I'm a guppy. Look, it's brand new. I'm back here. What? That's new. No, it's not. It's the same thing. And you do it again. You have to get here and have somebody go boom and knock you out. There has to be, truth is a very powerful force. It's like, it's like a rocket that gets out of gravity. Our natural cycle is a gravitational orbit. We just keep doing it. It's like Groundhog Day. What you have to do is you have to have so much fuel, and literally truth, accountability is fuel. It's powerful if you're willing to own it. Now, if somebody says, look, here's what I see, and you go, F you. Wait, if you go, F you. Good podcast, Financial Underdogs. If you just blow it off, you're going to miss the gift. You're going to miss the fuel. They're handing you a rocket ship to knock you out of your cycle of delusion. And if you say yes and shut up and take action, guess what? You pop out. It's like the energy cycle where you're vibrating and you're doing this. And at some point, if you're willing to acknowledge the truth, instead of doing this is like a merry-go-round. If you take the truth, it'll pop you up here, and then you're operating. You can never go back. The truth allows you to go to a different plane of being, of existence. Everything changes. The people in your life change. Your level of happiness changes. With what? The truth. There's a hard way and an easy way. The hard way is trying to figure all this crap out on your own. The easier way, still hard, is accountability and getting naked. So how naked are you going to get? Do not send pictures. I got a meme from somebody, and they said, okay, I have a new thing in the bunkering or the pandemic quarantine. My new thing is I'm selling my nudies, my naked pictures for $5 each. And so you can pay me $5 for my naked picture, or you can pay me $25 to not send them to you. And I was like, that's pretty funny. So just get naked with your numbers and your reality, okay? Share that with somebody. Somebody that's going to tell you the truth, not somebody that's going to say, good job. Like, you don't need that. You don't need that. You can, get a dog if you want that. They'll always be happy with whatever dumb things you do. But somebody that's mentoring you, a mastermind, they'll call you out on your shit. They'll literally just say, and if need be, they'll kick your butt to the curb, which is necessary sometimes for people to get it. It's like people that have to hit rock bottom before they're willing to say, I got a problem. Sometimes that's the only way that it'll work. You guys don't have to go there if you're willing to be accountable and take responsibility now. Okay, the Bucky 5. Now, this is the 5 people in your life that you're around the most. The Bucky 5, the way I look at it, and Chris and I talked about this for a long time, there's ultimately 2 things people do. To you, for you, with you. Here's what they do. They either they energize you, or they suck the living snot out of you. How do you know if they energize or suck you? When people call you, if you trip and fall and bloody your nose trying to get to the phone because you're so happy, you're like, oh my gosh, this person, I love this person. That's called energizing. If you're like, you see the phone, you're like, ah! And you throw it out the window into a creek, they suck the energy out of you. That's like the opposing counsel for a lawsuit because they want to tell you that they found something else and they're going to screw you some more. That is somebody you throw the phone out. Like, I don't want to hear from this person. So these people in your life, these 5 people, and it's not 50 because you only spend most of your time with like 5 people. So do they energize you, or do they suck the ever-living everything out of you? Here's what I would do to start to figure that out. I like the phone thing because it's a visceral thing. Phone rings up. I mean, I've had people that I would call them and they might text me back. And if they did anything, usually they just texted me back. And I thought, I must either be sucking their energy or they just don't like me or something. So it's a telling thing. And if I'm doing the same thing, that's a pretty good sign too. Like, what is going on? Or maybe you're just scared of responding. But the reality is people either energize you or suck you. So here, how do you measure that? One thing you can do is measure things about them. What I like to do with the Bucky 5 is measure people's level of wealth, their health, their level of love, their level of integrity, integrity, and mission. That's kind of an N. If you want to figure out how wealthy you're going to be in 5 years, take the 5 people you're around, figure out how much they have, divide it by 5, those 5 people. That's your wealth. It's just how it is. A great example of that, Mark Victor Hansen was talking to Tony Robbins and he said, hey, Tony, I know you made like $150 million last year and he's got hundreds of millions of dollars in net worth. And I would like to figure out how to make more. I mean, I'm making millions of dollars. This is Mark Victor Hansen, wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. And Tony said, okay, you want to make more? He goes, yeah. He goes, do you have a mastermind? Are you being accountable? Mark said, yeah. And he said, okay, who's in it? And Mark said, they're all millionaires. These guys are successful. And Tony said, that's the problem. You don't have any billionaires in there. Mark goes, oh, okay. Why is Bill Gates' mentor Warren Buffett? Why do people have certain people in their life? Why is it hard to go to somebody that's worth 10, 50, 100 million, a billion and say, hey, I want to hang out and I want to suck your energy. I want to suck your wisdom. They don't want you to, well, for one, they generally have friends and they don't want new ones. I've heard a lot of wealthy people say that. Because it's really important who we're around. And you've got to have something extraordinary if you want to come to the party. And it doesn't have to be your wealth. You can come to the party with something totally different. It could be your mission. You ever notice that people that have these incredible visions and missions, like Peter Diamandis, when he said, I'm going to have a $10 million X Prize to go into space. He didn't have $10 million. He announced his program for the X Prize with a bunch of people like astronauts behind him. And he's like, okay, how the hell am I going to pay for this? His mission was so big that he started attracting people. And ultimately there was somebody that came in, I forget who it was. I think it was in Abundance that he talks about it. This woman shows up and she goes, that mission, I like that. Funding, boom. So wealthy people will be attracted if you have a mission that's big. Your health. If you're around a bunch of super unhealthy, sick, fat, disgusting people that have bad habits, guess what you're going to develop? You're going to develop some bad habits. Your health is going to end up being a reflection of those 5 people. Your love. If you're around a bunch of people like that old guy that I knew back in Texas that's cheating on his wife and thinks he can get away with it, your love life is going to suck. So when you're around people, those 5 people, what is their love life? What does their relationship life look like? The integrity. Back to that love, same guy. Integrity piece. The people around you, and it's not just about cheating on spouses. I'm talking about, do you do what you say you're going to do? When I'm looking at people, it's so rare that people actually show up. It's so rare that people actually do what they say they're going to do. They'll say, I believe this, and they say the same thing, and then they don't do anything remotely close. And I go, you got an integrity problem. You're literally unethical and immoral in how you show up or don't show up. Measure the 5 people in your life, 5 solid, 1 0, like they got nothing. Are they at a place? And with wealth, I mean, literally, I would get granular. I would ask, okay, how much is this person making? What is their net worth? Like Tony did with Mark Victor Hansen. Same thing. Measure that. The health, the love, the integrity. The health, the love, the integrity, the mission. Scale those. If you have 3s for your 5 people here, you're basically going to be average. You're never going to have exceptional love or exceptional health because you tend to fall down. It's the least common denominator thing. We tend to fall down to those averages. It's kind of like if you the reason that I've studied martial arts for 20 years is because in the event that I need to do something, like save my life, defend myself, I'm not going to rise to the occasion. Okay, there's 10 people around me. I am going to be a warrior. No, what we do is we fall down to the level of our training. That's where we show up. That's how we show up. Don't let anybody tell you something different. So what are you training? Who is part of your training team? All this stuff is you training. You're training your mind. You're training your spirit. If people are around you that are cheating and screwing other people over, you're training yourself that that's okay because that's what they do. I mean, that's just unconsciously, we will start thinking that way. Figure out how to raise this so all these pieces go to to 5. You want to go to 5. And you know what? Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes that means you're actually going to be cutting people loose. It means you might be eviscerating people. I mean, I've done that. I've eviscerated people. I've been eviscerated. And you know, sometimes it's hard to stomach that, to think about somebody cutting you out of their life. I look back and I go, okay, I got cut out of some people's lives over the years that's happened. Why? Sometimes it was them. It was always me because I was always the common denominator. And there's a great lesson if somebody cuts you out, not to be mad at them, but to actually ask. I mean, this happened last year. And I was thinking, what is the gift here? And one of the gifts is it opens up space for new relationships. So sometimes there's just not a good fit. Like it's not a good fit. Love relationships, personal relationships. When you're reinventing, you have to challenge your relationships. The people in your life, those Bucky 5, are they serving you? Are they sucking you? Are they energizing you? If you're going to have a mission that matters for your time on this planet, you have to have energy. And energy from other people is a godsend because it just keeps happening. It's like the eternal inferno. And it's a choice. What are the people around you doing? Are they complaining? Are they watching the local news all the time? I've had people that I do not spend time with. I will not go to their house, and they're not bad people, but they can't turn the damn television off. And it's like, if it's bleeding, it's bleeding, and it's on their television. I'm going, oh my gosh. I go in the house and I'm like, I got to get out of here. My energy gets sucked from their environment, and they're just there all the time. So this is about being conscious. If you want to reinvent, you may have to be doing some shifting with the people around you, or the people that you're Zooming happy hour with or whatever, because you might not have that many people around you right now, but they're around you in your life and you're on the phone with them and you're having conversations with them. Are they inspiring you or are they devouring you? That's really what the question is. The last part of the reinvented life is simplicity. And the N and the W is escaping me. So let me look at my notes. Very complicated. It's needs and wants. It was so simple, it was like, gone. So simplicity, one of the main reasons I moved to the mountains was to simplify my life, to learn how to do different things that I hadn't really spent time doing before because I was running so fast. And the things that I thought I needed, the stimulation that has become so a part of our lives, that was a want. It was a need and a want, but it wasn't a requirement. It was a way to feel, the way to feel alive. And I definitely didn't need it to survive. You know, I wanted it. So I decided to ask, what do I really need? And I'm not talking about minimalism, which is also cool. I'm not talking about you need to give away everything except for one pair of pants and one t-shirt and live in a tent or a yurt or whatever. I'm talking about challenging your assumptions about what you have to have and whether or not it's making you happier or not as happy. Simplicity changes things. It fundamentally changes your experience. Moving up here, not getting on a plane, cooking, waking up with the sunrise and not an alarm. There are things, and I know that some of these things aren't going to be necessarily an option or practical immediately, but doing these things where you start connecting to natural circadian rhythms. You start pushing the devices away and you have simple things, eating out on your own deck versus eating out in a restaurant all the time. There's a happy factor with this. One of the reasons that the studies show that people, when they hit a certain level of income, 70, 80,000 in there, going past that does not necessarily make you happier. It's just more money. So you might be happier, but if you go from 70 to 140, you're not going to be twice as happy. Life gets more complicated. And simplicity is a great strategy to always go back to. I always say that it's everything I do, I make it as simple as possible, as complicated as necessary. So how can you do that in your life? How can you make things simple? P from BS. You guys remember the peak life? Part of simplicity is purging. It's purging. One of the beautiful things about moving as many times as I have is I'm forced to look at my stuff, the weight of my shit that I have to pick up and move around. It forces me to say, okay, how many boxes of mementos or things do I want in my life? Or can they go somewhere else? Can they be thrown away? Can they be given away? To go to simplicity, a purge. And Marie Kondo talks about this in her book, and there's things about kind of back to minimalism. It's very hard to walk into your house or your life or your friends and say, okay, who or what am I going to get rid of? Go into your closet and say, what am I going to get rid of? There's emotion and fear and angst around doing that. What's the solution? It's something that I call the blank slate. Zero-based thinking. Brian Tracy said zero-based thinking. Blank slate is like these moves where I've moved and I get into a house and I go, okay, what's going to go into this house? I'm not going to just take all my stuff and move it into the house. I'm literally, even to the extent where I'm looking at artwork and I go, what would work really well on these walls? Instead of just taking whatever I've had. A couple of houses ago, I had all my stuff, all my art, all over the place, and nothing matched. It was absolute chaos. Now that might be a theme, I guess, chaos, but it didn't feel like an environment of, there wasn't fluidity. There was a lot of friction. And so going into an environment, go into your closet, take all your clothes out and go, okay, what do I love? And you write them down, what you can actually remember. Go get those things. And then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Maybe grab that one too. Take everything off your walls. I mean, for me, when I said, okay, I'm gonna move, what do I want? And I defined what I wanted, as simple as possible, as complex as necessary. And I put it out to people and I said, here's what I'm looking for. And it took 24 hours to find the home I'm in. And it was the simplest as possible, as complex as necessary home. And then from there, I have a blank slate where if I come in and it doesn't fit, like if I don't go, I'm going to have a picture here, but I got all these other ones. Those are going into storage or getting donated. And it's very freeing because then you end up with what you really truly need, not just things you think you want, because our mind will play games. And the last thing that I'm going to throw in here, which I think is incredibly powerful. There's a shortage on toilet paper and seeds right now. Do you guys know that? It's almost impossible to find. Like, seeds have become scarce because people are actually growing stuff. Like, that's happening here. There's growing going on. That's the plan. There's been a lot of plantings going on. Grow something. There's something simple and powerful about growing some food. You actually start connecting with the things that sustain you. My good friend John back east, shout out to you for telling me to go roll around in the mud, which I think is pretty funny. And I might just do it. He's talking about it being in his garden. When the pandemic broke out, he goes, we were talking and he goes, yeah, I wasn't even aware because I was in my garden. And there's something incredibly peaceful and serene and still and rich about being in the dirt. It brings you back and it grounds you to something that's very real and authentic. an herb garden in your kitchen, anything, start somewhere and see what happens. I mean, you might find that all that stuff you thought you needed or wanted, maybe not as exciting as the growing the stuff. I mean, I remember back in 2005 when I decided the opposite of simplicity. I wanted a Ferrari. So I watched Bad Boys 2 and I saw Will Smith in a Ferrari and I said, I'm getting that car. This is not simplicity. I went and bought the car, and third day I had it, a light went on, $10,000 for the light. Seventh day got pulled over for reckless driving and speeding and all this stuff. And there was nothing simple about this. It was just creating complexity. And now, I mean, there'll be days that I don't even drive because I'm so happy being where I am. There's a great book by John Kabat-Zinn called Wherever You Go, There You Are. It's a state of mind, a state of being that the simpler you are, probably the happier you're going to be. And I think that's probably broadly true. So how simple is your life? How much simpler can you make it? If you're going to reinvent, removing all unnecessary complexity is a critical piece to having the happiness so that you actually can have three things. You're like, I'm happy, happy, happy. If you have 500 things you're doing, are you really ever going to find the happiness? I doubt it. It's just overly complicated. So maybe start with simplicity. And if it doesn't work, maybe complexity. But see, because I don't think most of us have been really good at simplicity most of the last decades of our lives, maybe the entire time. That's kind of the end of going through this book. I would love to answer some questions if you guys have those. If you want to put them in the Q&A, and Wendy can throw them out. There's a lot in this book, and one of the reasons that I wrote the book was that I wanted to be accountable to what I'd already done. That's why I journal. I wanted to learn from my own activities so that I wasn't on a merry-go-round. I didn't want to have Groundhog Day being my life experience, where if I look back at a journal, it would be, oh, look, I had the same year 10 times in a row or 50 times in a row. This book gave me a manual. It gave me ways to learn from my own experiences so that I could shift. Anytime I wanted to, I could just dig into this work. And that's what I'm hoping that you guys got out of this, was some tools and some ideas so that you can reinvent on cue. Pandemic or no pandemic gives you some ideas and some ways to reinvent your life, whatever that looks like, and however you want it to be and reinvented. Wendy, is there anything that anybody has asked that I can help with?
Hey everyone, great questions. Oh my goodness. Yeah, thank you, Damien. This is awesome. What great, valuable information and just guidance you're providing all of us. So yeah, I'm just gonna go back up here from about an hour ago here. I have a question from Anonymous. It says, how do you shift your life when your partner does not agree?
Okay, so it's a really good question. How do you shift your life? So you've really got a few options. One, you get a new partner or you go on your own. That's eviscerating. That's hardcore, and sometimes it's necessary. The second thing is you communicate and see if you can, sometimes so there's two things that may be happening. One, you want to change your life and you want to raise your life to a different level of being, a different mission, a different level of playing, how you're showing up, and your partner doesn't want to do it. And so maybe you can inspire your partner. If you start doing the work, people often say, well, my friends, my family, my spouse, they don't get it. I try to tell them, well, it's like trying to teach a pig to sing. Pisses off the pig and it makes you crazy too. Like, it doesn't work. So if you start singing and you're just singing and happy, maybe the pig will start singing. You never know. With people, leading by example is going to go a lot further than trying to convince somebody. And then being open, just sharing. I think the reason that we oftentimes don't share what's really going on, what's really true, is we're afraid that somebody's going to say we're crazy, or the truth of the relationship is going to really bubble up. So you can do that. Strong arming is really not a good, I mean, I've done strong arming. It doesn't really work very well. It just makes people crazy, including you. So it's hard, because sometimes the best thing for everybody is truly saying, I'm moving here. And you can also say, well, I don't want to give up on this thing. I'm just going to stay here. And what you have to acknowledge is that just may be what your life looks like indefinitely. Because when people are anchored down and you go there, it's unlikely you're going to pop out. because you're accepting your acceptance of that life. It's not good or bad. It's just, it's going to be really challenging for you to go off if you're going in two different directions. I've done this, I shared this before, but I think it's worth talking about too. If we have two people and they're, there's this one person, this is like you're going this way and you're holding hands with somebody here. And y'all are going in a circle, you're orbiting. If you want a different life, and when you say different, I presume a bigger or something different, you're going to speed up. And if you know anything about orbiting, and if you speed up and this person's staying the same speed, you either have to get further away from that person, be out here with this bigger speed, or they have to go faster. And if they don't want to go faster, you're going to go further away. When you have a big mission, you're wanting something different for your life. It generally looks like more energy. More energy means you're going faster, or there's more of a gravitational pull. That person you're just going to split. You're not going to be orbiting. And if you are, eventually you're going to break. Because if you look at bodies like planets, the closer they are, the stronger the gravitational force. Further away they get, it's very, very weak. And at that point, is that a relationship? Orbiting in sync is a relationship. There's a lot of power there. Ultimately, you have to decide, do you want to keep syncing? Is that person going to speed up? Are you going to slow down? And ultimately, it's just your choice. Hope that helps.
Yeah, that was awesome, Damien. Thank you for the visual. Mark has a question going back to mentors. Can a financial advisor be a mentor?
It's a good question, Mark. Financial advisors typically are financial salespeople. And so there are some that are outstanding in that they're actually advising. Some are set up so they charge a fee for their service, like an annual fee. Doesn't matter. They're gonna advise you based on your goals. The problem with most financial advisors is they're just selling mutual funds and annuities and life insurance. And if you're not buying that thing, you're violating what they need to sell you. So it depends on the financial advisor. It depends on who you're dealing with. Are you dealing with somebody that's just selling your stuff to you? Or are you dealing with somebody that is looking, I mean, this happens all the time when people come to us in one of my companies and they'll say, my financial advisor said that this real estate or this gold thing is like, I should only do 5%. And I was like, well, why is that? Well, my advisor said that it's risky. And I go, it's risky for them. They just didn't tell you who it was risky for. It's risky for them if you go do this other stuff because they lose their fees. And that's a big part of the thing. Doesn't mean that gold and real estate or certain things are not risky. It just means that a financial advisor typically is going to have their best interest at heart, even when they're saying your best interest. The best financial advisors are the ones that will do what's best for you every time, even if it means they're not making any money or all the money that they make from you goes away. Those people are priceless. They're very rare. They exist, but just ask. I always like asking financial advisors for their balance sheet, their personal financial statement. Like, if you're going to sell me something, are you making money based on commissions, or do you make money, like, do you make money selling, or like with the investments you're selling me, are you making money because you invested in those things too? Like, I want to get your financial advisor naked, see what happens. And then you'll probably know the answer.
Yeah, great question. Great answer. Thank you. That's awesome. Great to see you here, Susan. I love your question. I'm thinking it's about the Bucky 5, so I'll just roll with it. Is one of those more important than the others?
And so Susan, if you have a follow-up, if that is what we're talking about, I'll answer it. And if it's not, just follow up and I'll dig in. Wealth, health, love, integrity, and mission.
Yep.
There's a great book by, I think the other author was Marx. And it was about the book is called The Most Important Thing. And every chapter you learn the most important thing to know when you're investing is this. The next chapter is the most important thing is this. And somewhere in the middle of the book, you're like, how can everything be the most important thing? This doesn't make any sense. And the reality is you can't just get rid of one of them. Like you just, if you look at all of them, if you say, okay, well, I'm just not going to worry about the integrity piece, it spills into everything else. If there's no mission, then you have kind of just a tiptoeing safely to death's door And so people that you're around, if they don't have that, I don't think you can just eliminate one of these things. Unless you're okay with that. And it really depends on what you want. If your vision of your life is here for, I guess, for your mission or for your health, and your people are down here, it's not going to work. Like you're gonna absorb that stuff. And if it does work, you can't even believe the amount of energy and struggle you're going to have. It's a lot easier to get your life done the way that you envision it if you have people around you that are give you an example with your health. If all of your friends are what they do is they go to the gym every day, or they all do yoga, and you're doing yoga every day, you're going to be pretty solid in terms of your core. You're probably going to eat differently because when you do a lot of physical activity, I mean, Wendy, you and Dave know this, there's like athletes, because y'all are super athletes, hanging around other people makes sense that are in that similar space, because you're not going to hang out with people that are like having Dunkin' Donuts for breakfast and 3 martinis for dinner. Like that doesn't make any sense, because you're thinking about what you're going to do for your health. So you got to start with your Bucky 5 before you look at your people. Say, okay, here's what matters in my life, and then go back to, it's like blank slate. Here's my vision, and then the people that are around me are either going to enhance it or detract from it. And then you really have an understanding of whether you have power or whether you have a drain. That's really what it is. It's just being real with it and getting naked on the truth. So I hope that answered that question. If there's another question, just throw it out. What do you throw it at me?
That was great, Susan. Thank you. I see a few of you asking kind of the same question, so I'll kind of try to wrap this. And Philip asks, how do you begin your journey to reinvent yourself after falling to your knees and realizing you need a change? And that same question is being asked too by, what would you suggest is the best way to start on your journey to be successful?
The answer to starting is somebody that's in a good place that you respect enough that you can get help from. Because we're too close to our stuff. We're too close to the legacy behaviors and beliefs and the way that we think. And so we have to have somebody else. When I finally said, okay, I need to fix me, I don't know how to do it. Acknowledging that we don't know how to do it is the first step. And then saying, okay, like your question is great. Multiple of you guys have asked this. A lot of you are asking this in your head right now. Where do I start with? Finding somebody that will ask you, and the core question in this book is, what is true? Having somebody there that will ask you what is true and not let you off the hook when you go off to grandma's house with your answer, where you start talking. And then, like when I talk to people, the people that have worked with me, when we're hardcore, I'm not there to be your friend. I'm there to get to the truth, to help you get it out of you, whatever it is. And so you're going to start talking, and I'm going to go, stop. What is it? I'm going to keep bringing you back. So this person is going to keep you between the sidelines. It's like you're going to be bouncing. Okay, here's the end zone, right? So you're heading this way, but we tend to be all over the place. We'll go right into the stands and hang out over here. This is what most people will do. We're not staying on track. Somebody that will give you the feedback to keep you on track is what matters.
Cool, great. I think we have time for maybe one more, and it goes back to the Bucky 5 on equally weighting the Bucky 5s, and how do you upgrade your Bucky 5s? It's easy to want, but how do you actually do it?
So how do you upgrade your Bucky 5? How do you increase your stuff? So if you've got people in your life, like just start, let's start with the wealth. If everybody in your life makes $50,000 to $100,000 and you want to upgrade, go find somebody that you can hang out with. Go to a meetup group, start contributing to somebody that's worth $1 million or $5 million or $10 million or $100 million. Start contributing to them. And what'll happen is they'll just naturally kind of want to be in a relationship with you at some point. It sort of just happens. Authentically serving people. It's about service. It's about contributing. With your health, if you want a certain level of health, go find somebody. Join a running club. Go the people that you look at and you go, it's modeling. Okay, it comes down to one thing, and that's modeling. Find the model and then join the team. If you want to understand love relationships, I mean, I've got a few that I can say that's a great model. John and Missy Butcher of Lifebook. Go just watch them. Pay attention to them. See how they operate. And then say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to, like, when I didn't have anybody to hang out with, when I dropped out of college and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do and had an idea, nobody around me was doing that because they were all doing college and I was off trying to make my millions. And so I just started listening to mentors like Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and all these different people. You can find the people on audio and video right now. It doesn't matter if you know people with integrity. If you have a bunch of jackasses in your life that are out there cheating on their spouses and they're cheating on their taxes and they're cheating on their dog, if that's your life, cut them all out and just listen. Find people that are like, listen to Jim Rohn for the next year. I mean, seriously, if you want to talk about somebody that just walked it, talked it, lived it, did it, integrity and mission doesn't take very much to figure out the mission. I mean, to figure out what that looks like, just go look at anybody that's changing the world. I mean, love him or hate him, look at Elon Musk. The guy is on a mission. So you can absorb their energy by just listening to them. I mean, right now you have access to everybody in the world because, what we're doing though is we're burying ourselves in noise and negativity from the news and from other people that are regurgitating the news. And it really doesn't serve us. Find people that are on a mission that are like, yeah, I get it. I'm not deluded. I understand there are problems and my focus is going to be on the mission. I mean, it's really fascinating when you just start saying, I'm going to filter. And you might have to be a jerk about it sometimes and just say, no, I don't want any of that. It's like when somebody comes up on you right now, like I'm hiking and somebody comes up and I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to go over here. You have to be willing to move past the judgment of somebody that doesn't get it or isn't supporting you. So every one of these things, there's a way for you to enhance your Bucky 5, even if it's not physically, because it'll still shift you if you have the energy and the vibe from those people. I used podcasts and audios, especially the audio programs. Brian Tracy was somebody that I put into my brain for probably thousands of hours, and going through Personal Power with Tony Robbins, like those different things, you can rewire yourself with other people's stuff. We tend to just spend a lot of more time with people than we do on audio programs. So it's really important to figure those people out. But if you're spending a ton of your time in the woods, just downloading stuff, that's also going to have a massive impact on you evolving and going to 5. All right, Woody, anybody else? And then we'll call it a day.
That's it. We're good to go.
You guys, thank you so much for being here. Wendy, thanks for helping out and being a part of this. As always, you're amazing. You guys are all amazing for thinking and choosing to look at reinventing. I mean, just the idea of that, we need more people that are willing to say, okay, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And reinventing is a process we can choose. So if you spend part of your Sunday or whenever you're watching this with me is deeply, it's humbling for me to know that you have a lot of choices and there's about 1 million channels right now that you could be watching. Spend it with me. I appreciate it very much. If you want more of the way that I think, if I can do more to help you, check out Financial Underdogs, CFU. Check this out every week. And if you have a question or something you want some help with, shoot me an email, Damien@financialunderdogs.com. Here to help you guys, and we will have more coming to you soon to help you break the shackles and help you reinvent your life. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you next time.